Picture a dusty battlefield in ancient times. The sound of thousands of soldiers marching. It's October 1st. 331 BC dawn breaks over the plains of Gaugamela in what is now northern Iraq. A 25-year-old king stands before the largest army ever assembled in the ancient world. 1 million Persian soldiers. War. Elephants, scythed chariots with blades designed to slice through human flesh. And who are they facing? Just 47,000 Macedonian warriors. Every military expert said it was suicide. Every advisor begged him to retreat. But this young king had a plan, a tactical masterpiece that would be studied for the next 2,300 years. In just 12 hours, he would destroy the mightiest empire on earth. In 13 years, he would conquer lands from Greece to India, creating an empire larger than any before it. And he would never lose a single battle. Today, we are going to discover how a Macedonian prince became Alexander the Great, the most successful military commander in human history. How did he do it? What were his secrets? And what can we learn from his extraordinary journey? Let's find out. To understand how Alexander conquered the world, we first need to understand who he was. Let's go back to the beginning. 356 BC, in Pella, Macedonia. Alexander was born in a kingdom that most other Greeks considered semi-barbarized. His father was Philip II, a brilliant military reformer who was transforming Macedonia from a backwater into a military powerhouse. But here's what's fascinating. From the moment Alexander was born, his parents believed he was destined for greatness. His mother, Olympias, claimed he was descended from Achilles, greatest warrior in Greek mythology. She filled his childhood with stories of gods and heroes. She told him he wasn't just meant to be a king, he was meant to be a legend. From age 13 to 16, Alexander had perhaps the greatest teacher in history. Aristotle, one of the most brilliant philosophers who ever lived. Aristotle didn't just teach Alexander philosophy, he taught him medicine and biology, how to understand the human body. He taught him geography, knowledge of the known world, politics, how to rule diverse populations, and military strategy, analyzing famous battles. But most importantly, Aristotle gave Alexander a copy of Homer's Iliad, the epic poem about the Trojan War. Alexander slept with this book under his pillow every night for the rest of his life. He saw himself as the new Achilles, destined to achieve glory through conquest. But Alexander wasn't just a student. He was a warrior. At age 16, while his father Philip was away attacking Byzantium, Alexander was left in charge of Macedonia. He promptly crushed a rebellion by the Mede, a Thracian people. Then, at age 18, at the Battle of Chaeronea, Alexander commanded the elite cavalry wing of his father's army. He personally led a charge that broke through the sacred band of Thebes' elite force of 300 warriors who had never been defeated. The young prince had proven himself in battle, but his greatest test was yet to come. In 336 BC, during a wedding celebration, Philip II was assassinated by his own bodyguard. The murder remains a mystery to this day. Some historians even believe Olympias, Alexander's mother, might have been involved. At just 20 years old, Alexander became king of Macedonia. The kingdom he inherited was on the brink of collapse. Greek city-states were rebelling. Northern tribes were attacking the borders. Many believed the young king would fail. They had no idea what was coming. Within months of becoming king, Alexander faced his first crisis. The city of Thebes, one of Greece's most powerful cities, declared independence and prepared for war. What Alexander did next would send shockwaves across the ancient world. Many expected him to negotiate. After all, he was young and inexperienced. But Alexander had learned from his father. Sometimes you need to send a message. He marched his army over 300 miles in just 13 days, right to Thebes' doorstep, and gave them one chance to surrender. They refused. In a single day, his army destroyed the entire city. Buildings burned, temples crumbled. Of the 30,000 citizens, 6,000 were killed, and the rest sold into slavery. Only the house of the poet Pindar was spared. Alexander loved Greek culture too much to destroy it completely. But why such brutality? This was a calculated move. Alexander burned Thebes to warn other Greek city-states. Don't rebel against me. And it worked. Every other Greek city immediately submitted. Alexander was now the undisputed leader of Greece. But his ambitions went far beyond Greece. For 200 years, the Persian Empire had been the superpower of the ancient world. It controlled everything from Turkey to Pakistan, over 50 million people. And from the moment he became king, Alexander had set his mind on its conquest. Why? 3 reasons. First, revenge. Back in 480 BC, the Persians had invaded Greece and burned Athens. The Greeks wanted payback. Second, money. Alexander needed Persian gold to pay his army and his father's debts. And third, glory. Alexander wanted to surpass even Achilles, his childhood hero. So in 334 BC, at age 22, Alexander crossed from Europe into Asia with 48,000 soldiers. He would never return to Greece. The Persian Emperor, Darius III, dismissed the invasion as a minor border raid. He sent his regional governors to crush this young upstart. What happened next would prove Darius had made a catastrophic mistake. Alexander's first major battle was at the Granicus River in modern-day Turkey. The Persians gathered about 40,000 men on the far bank of the river. They had a huge advantage. Alexander's army would have to cross under arrow fire, climbing up muddy banks while Persian cavalry waited to strike. Every advisor told Alexander to wait, to find another route. But Alexander saw an opportunity. To understand his genius, you need to understand his father's military innovation. The hammer and anvil. Here's how it worked. The anvil was the Macedonian phalanx. Infantry soldiers, armed with an 18-foot-long pike called a sarissa. They formed an impenetrable wall of spears. The hammer was the companion cavalry, an elite force of 3,000 horsemen. Alexander personally commanded them. The strategy was simple. The phalanx would pin the enemy in place like an anvil. Then Alexander's cavalry would smash into their flanks like a hammer, cruising Tem. At Granicus, Alexander did something shocking. He personally led the charge across the river. Imagine this. A 22-year-old king, wearing a distinctive helmet with white plumes so everyone could see him, leading his cavalry directly into the Persian spears. His helmet was struck. His breastplate was pierced. At one point, a Persian noble raised his sword to kill Alexander, but his friend Cletus cut off the Persian's arm, saving his life. The Macedonians forced their way across. The phalanx followed, and within hours, the Persian army broke and fled. This first victory was crucial. It proved Alexander would lead from the front, that the Persian Empire was vulnerable, and that the hammer and anvil tactic worked. After Granicus, cities across western Turkey opened their gates to Alexander. The conquest had begun. News of the defeat reached Darius III, the King of Kings. He finally realized this wasn't a border skirmish. This was an existential threat, so he did something Persian kings rarely did. He personally took command of his army. In November 333 BC, Alexander found himself in a narrow coastal plain near Issus. Darius had assembled a massive army, some say up to 600,000 men. He thought he had trapped Alexander, but he had actually given Alexander exactly what he wanted. A narrow battlefield on a wide-open plain. Darius's numbers would have been overwhelming. But here, his numbers meant nothing. Alexander's phalanx held the center, while he led his cavalry in a decisive charge, aiming directly for Darius. In the heat of battle, Alexander spotted Darius on his golden chariot. He charged straight at the King of Kings. When Darius saw Alexander's cavalry breaking through his guards, cutting down his personal protectors, he panicked. The great king fled the battlefield, and when his soldiers saw their god king running away, morale collapsed. The army disintegrated. Alexander captured Darius's mother, his wife, his daughters, and his entire royal treasure. But here's what shows Alexander's political genius. He treated Darius's family with respect. He called Darius's mother mother and promised his daughters would be raised as princesses. He showed he wasn't just a conqueror. Could be a ruler. After Issus, Alexander made a decision that confused everyone. Instead of chasing Darius into the heart of Persia, he turned south toward Egypt. Why? What was his plan? This is where Alexander's strategic brilliance truly emerges. And it's where part 2 of our story begins with the greatest battle ever fought, a siege that changed geography forever, and the conquest that would make Alexander master of the known world. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.